All right, everybody, welcome to another video. And today we're doing a comparison between two knives, one made in USA, another made in China. So basically, this is USA versus China. All right, now they're both the same style knives, what we consider a folding buck knife. Okay, and of course, the original buck knife is made by Buck in the USA. All right. The Buck 110 is the iconic pocket folding buck knife. Okay. Now I'm not quite an expert in the history of these folding knives, so I can't really tell you who came up with this design first, who made it popular. All I can say is that it's a common knowledge that Buck was the original. Okay. If I'm wrong, and if you guys have better information, please comment down below and share your knowledge. All right. But this video is not about the history of buck knives or folding knives in this style, but it is a comparison. Okay. Now, my personal opinion, and that's all it is. Okay, is that the buck knife in Buck 110 in particular, this knife here, feels high quality, sturdy, solidly built. I mean, it's a joy to look at and hold. It really is. Now, when I use this knife, the handle, when you're not using it and you hold it in your hand, it feels like it's very comfortable. But when you're actually using it, I found that it has a tendency of moving up or moving down. The grip is not very secure, in my opinion. I find myself always having to readjust the grip as I work with the knife. Okay. But most people who hunt use this knife for field dressing, okay? Or at least that's what I'm told. So I'm not a hunter, so I can't really tell you how well it works skinning game. But I can tell you that whenever I do use this knife, and was using this knife, that the grip moves a bit around, and I always find myself having to readjust. Okay. Now from the factory, this edge is not very sharp at all. It really isn't. Cutting paper and everything else, it is not razor. It is nowhere close to being razor sharp. And in fact, I actually lent it to my sister-in-law who needed to cut something, and she needed a knife, and she was about to go to the into the house and get a kitchen knife to do it. And I said, "Oh, here, I got a knife. Here, use this." And she started to use it, and she basically said, "This is a very dull knife." Okay, so and that was a factory edge. It was brand new at the time, and I was taken back by that. I mean, I was like, I assumed that it was sharp. It felt sharp, and I felt like it would have been a great cutter and slicer and this and that. But then when it was time to go use it, the criticism came really hard. And that was from a woman who does a lot of kitchen work with knives and things, and she knows what a sharp knife is. So, and she basically said this was a very dull, not a very usable blade. So that was the impression, not my impression, but a third party impression of this knife. Now, ever since then, I have tried to sharpen this, and I think I pretty much ruined the edge. But it is definitely sharper than factory edge. I mean, it's not pretty the way I sharpened it. It's got a lot of marks and everything, but it is definitely sharper now than it was when I first bought it. Now let's move on to the um, Chinese-made copy or a buck knife, that however you want to characterize this knife. It's made in China. Um, it is stainless china. Okay. It is a company named Sheffield. Okay. I'm not too familiar with the brand, the company. I'm sure in the knife world everybody knows about it. Sheffield knife. Um, and This actually belonged to my father-in-law, who passed away recently, and he passed it down to me, or his wife passed it down to me. And this has a very sharp edge, that it feels like a very sharp edge. And I'm sure through his lifetime he has sharpened this perhaps, but he's done probably a better job of doing it, because there's at the blade, the edge, the blade itself is very smooth. Not smooth, but it has no markings or noticeable damage to the edge like I did with the Buck 10. I made the mistake of taking a Dremel tool and trying to sharpen that as much as I can, which was a huge mistake. Don't ever use a Dremel tool. If you're gonna use a machine sharpening tool, use a proper machine sharpening tool that's made for sharpening knives. Okay, but anyway, both of these knives feel very sharp. Okay, as you can see, there's jimping on the Chinese made one here, and there is no jimping here, but basically they're about the same size, same style. Okay, you can look at the build quality, or they're almost the same. I would say that the Buck 110 feels smoother, more finished, slightly heavier, you know. But I'll let you take a very good look at both of these knives to compare what you may think is the build quality. Okay. At the Buck 110, in the bolsters, there's no pins visible. Okay. In the Chinese one, the Sheffield one, you can see the pins. In the bolsters, the pins are very flush, smooth. You can't even feel that's a bolster. In fact, you have to kind of dig in with your fingernail to know that there is any textile feel to that bolster there. It's very smooth. Otherwise, you feel it. So in that respect, the quality feels pretty decent. The pins holding the scales in are much more proud. Okay. Than it is on the Chinese made version. Here, this one here feels like it's sticking out a bit and catchy. All of the other pins are flush. This one here is the only one that's kind of protruding out and kind of rough. On the back, these pins are very flush and smooth. The Buck 110 is pretty consistent. They're all kind of sticking out a little bit. Okay. Okay, now that we have thoroughly looked over the knife in seeing that they're very similar in style. Okay, let's see how sharp or how well they cut paper. Now, before we do that, let's look at the sheaths. The Buck 110 sheath is slightly heavier. It feels heavier. Stitching on the belt loop. Here we got a buckle or stud belt loop. Feels a little flimsy, but I think it'll serve its purpose. Of course, it doesn't feel like real leather. It's definitely, it feels more like cardboardish, but who knows? It could be real leather. I don't know. It just feels very paperish and cardboardish. Whereas to the Buck 110, you can tell this is genuine leather. I believe the sheath is made in Mexico, whereas the knife is made in USA. And of course, with the Sheffield copy, everything's made in China. Okay, so now let's go into cutting test of paper. Here is the Sheffield. It catches. It has an edge where it will saw through or cut through, but as a slicer, it is not very smooth. Okay. Okay, so it's not a buttery smooth blade. Does not cut very smoothly. It catches, and that may be the fault of the owner who actually sharpened the knife or try to hone it. It definitely needs a lot of honing work, a lot of stropping and honing and polishing to get that blade to cut smoother. But it's right now, I would say the edge is sharp enough. If you needed to force your cut through, it'll definitely do the job. But it's not gonna go through it like a lightsaber or laser. It's not gonna be smooth cut. You're gonna have to put some effort into cutting things with this. Now let's look at the Buck 110. It is smoother. And as I said, to be fair, when this Buck 110 was brand new, it did not cut smooth like this, okay? The only reason it's cutting smooth like this now is because I put some work into the edge. I sharpened it, and I honed it, and stropped it, okay? So, yes, I made the mistake of taking a Dremel tool and trying to sharpen it, and then I realized what I did to it. I really messed it up. So I went back to sharpening it again on the stone, diamond stone, and also I went back to honing it and stropping it, honing it on a smoother stone, and then stropping it on leather. And it still looks horrible, the edge, but as you can see, I sharpened it well enough where it cut smoothly, okay, and it cuts okay. Now, like I said, I have not done anything to this since I received the knife. It feels actually pretty sharp. To be honest, it kind of feels sharper than the Buck 110, but when you go to test it and see how well it catches, and it's not cutting very smoothly. I have to put more force into the action to get it to cut. So I'm sure if I put some work into it, stropped it, honed it, and then stropped it, I'm pretty sure that this will cut as smooth as this knife does right now. So when it comes to performance, the Buck 110 was not a good performer right out the box. Okay, you're definitely going to have to know what you're doing with blades in order to get the Buck 110 to perform exceptionally. Okay, otherwise you're going to be carrying around a knife that's pretty much a blunt instrument. Yes, it's got a sharp edge and everything, and when you go to cut things and slice things, it's not going to be a good performer unless you know what you're doing with blades and you know how to sharpen them, hone them, and strop them. So once you get that down, the Buck 110 is a very good knife to carry, and the hunters can the people who hunt and use this knife can attest to that. They can probably give a more expert opinion about that. Some like it, some may not like it. Some may swear by it, and some may say, well, if you're really serious about hunting, you use a fixed blade or what this and that. But I know a couple of lifelong hunters who are very avid in hunting, go hunting every year, say that this is what they carry when they go hunting. Okay, and this is what they use to do the field dressing. Now, like I said, sturdy, very sturdy. I'm gonna be honest with everybody. Since I received this knife, I have not carried this. I have not used this other than cutting paper and just being thankful that I got it because it's just a sentimental value right now. But here, as you can see, and here, there is blade wobble, okay? And even slight, minute up and down, you can feel movement, okay? So, yes, definitely a lot of blade wobble. You can hear it, okay? That was the Sheffield Chinese made version. And this is the US made version. Rock solid, guys. Rock solid. I am using quite a bit of force here and up and down. And there is no blade wobble. The blade is not going to budge, okay? Rock solid. You can hear it. If you can't see it, you can hear it, okay? So right then and there, okay, blade quality, I would have to say it depends on how you sharpen and how you hone it. Okay, you can make the cheapest steel cut like laser if you know how to sharpen, hone, and strop your blades. Okay, but the question is, how long will the edge retention stay? And I really don't put a lot of money, a lot of credit to edge retention. I'm not against sharpening a knife when it gets dull, and if it gets dull quicker, that's fine. I mean, how often do you go out into the field and you actually use your knife? And then, it's just like anything else. Once you've used something, okay, at the end of the day, it's your responsibility to take care of that blade. Clean it, resharpen it if you have to, or at least drop it to get that edge back on point. Okay, that is called maintenance, and that is, I mean, the cheaper the item, the more maintenance it's gonna need. And I don't mind doing that because I like playing around with knives. So that's not an issue for me. The issue is build quality. Is this knife gonna break on me? Is it gonna be reliable? If that's happening, I don't know. But then again, this knife may have gone through very hard use in its time, because my father-in-law, um, he was a avid outdoorsman. He went fishing a lot. He did a lot of work in the yard. And when he used things, he put a lot of force into his efforts in using his tools. So that this may have been after years of use that this is occurring. Okay, but to be fair, I've used this knife for tasks, and I'm telling you, it's still rock solid. Okay, so there you have it. Now the price difference, I'm sure this one here, I be honest, I don't know how much it cost initially. I'm gonna probably guess around maybe $25-$30, if that. Okay, but when I purchased this buck 110, and I purchased this from Walmart, it was only, I think, $34-$35. Now, if you go to buy the same buck 110 in the same packaging, you'll be surprised. You'll be lucky to find it under $50. Okay. Last time I went to Walmart and looked at the buck 110, it was $60. So they have almost doubled in price. Okay. So if you want to pick one up, do it now, because it's only going to get more expensive as time goes by. I have really considered possibly sending this knife back to Buck and having them fix this blade back to factory standards, so that way I can go back to sharpening it and stropping it and everything properly, instead of all these scratches now that you see on the edges and on the blade. This came from my lack of experience in sharpening knives. Now that I know what I'm doing a little bit better, I wouldn't sharpen this knife to the point where it looks like that on the edge. I don't know if you can, it won't focus maybe, or I don't know if you can see it. But yeah. As you can see, there's no problem with functionality and performance though. I mean, it's not the sharpest knife in the toolbox. Definitely, it's not the best working. I mean, I have sharper knives, and surprisingly from China, in fact. But in this China versus USA, USA is the victor, mainly because it's sturdy construction, heftier feel, and I mean more solid feel, and it is a heavy pocket knife for sure. Okay, it's not a knife that you would easily carry inside your pocket. Okay, you would know it's there. Okay, so that's why it comes with the sheath that goes on your belt, and it's a good package. I did wear this around, but occasionally I would go into some establishments that see it on my belt, and they would say, well, sir, you have to go back and put it back in your car. We don't allow people to come in this establishment with people with knives and stuff. So like casinos and courthouses and school buildings and such, you're not allowed to carry weapons around. So, you know, carrying this on your belt does become a little that's why knives like this are more for outdoor activity. Okay, it's not a very good EDC type of knife, only because if you want to carry it inside your pocket, it's a slim build, but they are very heavy. I rather much carry if I'm going to carry this much weight, I would rather carry the Victorinox Swiss Champ, which I do. Okay, because that's pocketable in the fifth pocket and very easy to conceal. And to me, it's not that hard to carry. But if I was to carry this in my pocket, I don't know, it would it wouldn't feel good to carry around in my pocket, in my opinion. But anyway, I'm rambling on. I digress. So, quality build, Victorinox. I'm sorry, not Victorinox. Buck 110. Positive about the positive. Anything? Do I have anything positive to say about this Sheffield Chinese made Buck 110 copy? Well, like I said, if you know what you're doing with the blade, and you know how to get it sharpened to razor sharp, it'll work fantastically. Okay, if you're not into actual heavy duty use, where you're cutting through thick meat and skin and have the risk of hitting bone and things like that, and you're not using as a very heavy duty tool, because this blade wobble here is, to me, it kind of, to me, sends me a message that this whole system, this whole knife can fail on you at a certain point. So I would feel more confident in carrying a Buck 110 for heavy duty use. Okay, I think this is a more solid lock. Okay, so here we are. If you're very budget oriented and you want to save a few bucks, go with the Sheffield Chinese made. Sharpen it really good, and you should be able to use it with absolutely no problem, no complaints. But if you're really going to be doing some hefty work with your knife, I wouldn't trust this, because, like I said, that's an issue right there. Okay. As far as appearance and build quality appearance, looks just as good as a good Buck 110. Okay. But if you want the original, if you want the true quality, this is the way to go. The victory to Buck 110 USA made. All right. Thanks for watching. See ya.